Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and I'm actually here at Road America for the Mama 24 Spring Rally. And Subaru has been nice enough to let me spend some time with their Forester, so today we're going to show you the best and the rest. Let's get into it. Before we get into the best and the rest, we're going to cover the details. So what's new for 2025? As you can tell, this is an all-new generation for the Forester. This is the 6th generation, and there's been a big focus on improvements in technology and cabin and on-road refinement. So we're gonna see if that's true. We're gonna start with the rest. Now, the first place I might ding the car would be under the hood, but it's not quite as simple as that. You do have one engine option, at least so far. It's a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated boxer 4-cylinder. It sounds very Subaru, doesn't it? It makes 180 horsepower, which is about 2 horsepower less than it did last year, but now it makes 2 more pound-feet at 178. Combined fuel economy is actually pretty good at about 29 mpg combined. There's no turbo option here, and as of now, there's no hybrid option and there's no plug-in hybrid option. Those would be a little bit more competitive to what we're seeing from RAV4 and CR-V, but Subaru has said that there will be a hybrid option coming later this year, I believe. They haven't designated exactly what that means, but they have said that it's coming, which will make this Forester a bit more competitive under the hood. And the next place we might ding this car is in terms of towing. Now, this thing tops out at about 1,500 pounds of towing capacity, which actually is pretty competitive and in line with most of the rest of the things from the segment, RAV4, CR-V, and the like. But the little brother Crosstrek can do up to 3,500 pounds when optioned correctly. I believe that's with the CVT transmission cooler, some additional reinforcements and things going on, specifically on that wilderness trim. Now, you will know that you cannot get the new 2025 body style Forester in wilderness just yet, but if we relate it back to the 2024 Forester, that thing in wilderness form could only tow about 3,000 pounds, which is just a little interesting that the bigger brother Forester tows a little bit less than the smaller brother Crosstrek. But again, we'll wait and see exactly what comes out for the Forester in the new 2025 for the wilderness. And we are going to talk about the trunk. It is powered, of course. It's pretty quick and it's pretty quiet. I do like that. And looking at the space, it seems really, really wide. The opening here is really practical, very rectangular, and very useful, I would say. Now, with the rear seats up, you're looking at about 29.6 cubic feet of space, and with the seats down, you're looking at about 74.4 cubic feet of space, which I have to put it on the con side of the video just because that is smaller than the CR-V's trunk and the RAV4's trunk. But you look at a space like this, and it's hard to say that it's a con or I guess a ding on this car. But you do get some interesting personality bits in the trunk. Of course, you've got your kind of typical topographical map style trunk cover. You've got some grocery bag hangers over here, a 12-volt, kind of the typical textured ribbing that we've seen from Subaru over the last bit. And then you even do have a little bit of detailing over here and some additional mounts. Now you can, if you look here, you can option some metallic bars, which will actually attach to the chassis itself if you want to put like a sleeping platform or a shelving unit back here. And you can mount them in a lot of different places, which is pretty nice. And if you look all the way up top, you even have a little bit of detailing up here with a compass, because again, this is the Adventure brand and they don't want you to forget it. So it's a little bit smaller trunk than competitors, but it's hard to say it's impractical. And then hopping in the cabin and talking about the technology. This is something we've talked about in modern Subarus for a while now, but there's just a couple things to note with this new 2025 Forester. First of all, you don't have a head-up display. Now this is the sport trim. I don't believe you can get it in any trim as of now. Another thing that you're not going to get on any trim is a fully digital instrument cluster. Now some companies, Toyota, Honda, they're offering, actually I don't even think you can get it on the CR-V, but Toyota will give you a fully digital instrument cluster. It's not going to change that much, so you're not really missing out on much information by not having one, but it just makes it look a little bit older here in the cabin, kind of typical of what we might see from Subaru. But then you come to the main event here. This is the 11.6-inch vertical style Starlink screen. Starlink is fine. Now, one of the nice things here is that in this 2025 Forester, you get wireless Apple CarPlay. That's a first for the Forester, which is pretty good. And you also get 360 cameras. I don't believe on this trim here, I don't know why I hit that, but you can get 360 cameras on your Forester now, which is pretty cool. And they still do the little dance thing that we saw in the Subaru Ascent, but you do have genuine 360 cameras, and that is really nice. Another nice tech feature, wireless charging pad, and you can get a digital rear view mirror, though not here in this Sport. I believe that's the top trim. So technology is fine. It's kind of a little laggy, typical Starlink stuff, but wireless Apple CarPlay is a nice new addition. 360 camera, a nice new addition. And of course, just some general modern touches. And we are going to touch on styling because of course this is a new generation for the Forester and you get a new look to go along with it. And it is a pretty new face. Now for me, this looks like a pretty drastic departure from the previous generation, but I think I might be the only one with that opinion. It still looks like a Forester, but it's a nice new design. It's a little bit more clean, it's a little bit more modern, it's a little bit more expensive looking. Now you get the big gloss hexagonal black grille, which I think looks nice. It's got this kind of bar that goes across the width of it. It doesn't actually light up like you'd see in a Volkswagen. I think that's fine. Might be a little cringy, but I think it looks good here. But you do have new running lights and you do have a new lower fascia here. And with the Sport, that means you get these bronze accents down here, and they even have a little dimpling pattern because it's a Subaru and it has to have some dimpling pattern on the black plastic, which I kind of like. It adds a little bit of personality. But I would be remiss if I didn't say anything about the steering adaptive LED headlights that come standard on this thing, which is a very nice feature, especially if you live out in the boonies or if you need to drive around a bunch at night. One place I will ding it though, incandescent turn signal, front and rear. I'd like to see it be full LED for a new generation like this, but I guess they gotta cut costs somewhere. But then stepping around the side, we see the profile is kind of typical boxy and geometric. I like that. It has a little bit more of a old school SUV style shape, and I think it looks pretty cool. You've got some humps and rails over your front and rear wheel fenders, and then you do have the bronze wheels as part of your Sport trim, and some functional aero. Subaru does a good job with that. And remember that dimpling stuff that you got on the front fascia? You got it here on your side skirt as well with the bronze detailing. So I like the attention to detail that they've spent here. Now pay attention because you've got black wing mirror here, black window treatments, but you also have this black bar for your A pillar, which then transitions into your D pillar, which says symmetrical all-wheel drive. Very Subaru. Interesting place to put that. And then you do see you have Subaru detailing in your taillight as well, which brings us around to the rear, which again, very geometric, very classic SUV. You've kind of got that faux full width tail bar that we saw in the Mercedes GLC. I'm not necessarily saying this looks like a GLC, but I think it looks pretty good. Again, I'm a sucker for the bronze details in Sport, and down here in your diffuser for your exhaust, which you have Forester embossed in here to make it look a little bit more luxurious and expensive than it otherwise would. Now, I did have this on the con side of the video, but to be honest, I'm kind of neutral to maybe lukewarm about it, but let me know what you think down in the comments. But now, let's talk about all the great things about this new Forester. And the first and probably best thing about any Forester is just kind of the general Subaru things. Now it still has a CVT for your transmission, but it's a new beefed up unit from the previous generation Wilderness. So I like to see that. It's a little bit stronger, a little bit more durable, and it'll handle a little bit more power. Now you do have the symmetrical all-wheel drive as we've seen, which is very practical, especially for climates like we have here in Wisconsin, or where me and my wife were last week in Colorado. Loads of Subarus out there, so I think those people are gonna love this. Now, you also do have a nice, easy suspension. It's a static damper, but it's a very easy ride, and we'll talk more about that later. You also do have X mode for your all-wheel drive, so snow, deep snow, mud, and sand, and all that sort of stuff. It's not gonna be a problem here. And then, one of my favorite things, I always relate it back to the Bronco Sport Badlands that we had. That thing had 8.6 inches of clearance. Your Subaru Forester, as standard, not even an off-road spec, is gonna give you 8.7, so 0.1 inch more of clearance than a Bronco Badlands, the off-road oriented Bronco. Now that being said, that is very good, but there will be a Wilderness version of this new 2025 coming in the next few months, so stay tuned for that if you want a little bit more off-road capability. Another place I like this new Forester is in the back seat. Now first of all, we're going to touch on this a little bit more, but the materials here on this new 2025 are a lot better. And you've got these little detailings, and of course, it wouldn't be the dog brand without a little shout out here in the back seat. Typically, we've got our mountain inlays and even our Subaru stars here on your kick plate. But look at the space in here. This is fantastic. Huge amount of legroom. I'm 6'1" for reference. Huge amount of knee room, and I even have headroom, a nice high ceiling right here. Now you do have climate vents back here, USB-C, USB-A. You can get rear heated seats, outboard rear heated seats, which is very, very nice. The seats themselves are comfortable, and it just makes a lot of sense. It's a nice back seat here. You've got a big pano roof. It does have a manual sunshade, which is a little bit annoying to operate from the front seat, but you love to see the pano roof and Subaru being a little bit more competitive with some of the more luxury features that you're finding in competitors. Now, I said we were going to talk about the cabin experience and the improved interior a little bit more, and we're going to do that here. We're going to start talking about these front seats though. They're very comfortable. The synthetic leather is pretty good. Doesn't breathe the best, but I think it still is pretty nice. You've got some nice contrasted piping and stitching here to match the rest of the theme. Even with the exterior, I think it comes together really, really well. Your front seats are 2-level memory for your top trim, and you can get heated and even cooled seats now on your top trim Forester, which is the first ever that we've seen from the Forester. You can also get a heated steering wheel on a Forester if you'd like, depending on how you spec it. And you even have SI drive, although now it looks like S#I drive, which is kind of interesting. But the interior as a whole, the design is pretty familiar to what we've seen and tested in recent Ascents and Outbacks and Crosstreks, and the design generally kind of follows suit with that. But there's been a huge focus on improvement in materials, and you can really see that. You've got this like almost canvas material here on your door card, kind of dimpled, softer faux leather here for your door card with contrasted gray. And then here on your dash, you can see the dimpling. It's really kind of nice. I like that attention to detail. It's not just a black scratchy dash. They've done a lot of work here to make it feel more expensive, and I think it really pays off. The leather is great. You can get suede in here, which is really nice, and you even have Harman Kardon audio that you can option depending on how you want it. And the nice thing is, you got your big 11.6-inch vertical screen, but your climate controls are still semi-physical for smaller things, and this bottom ribbon here always stays there. So if you want to adjust fan speed, your heated seat, cooled seat, you can kind of always do that. So I do like how they've kept some physical buttons in here. We're gonna talk safety for a second because your eyesight system has been revised, it's been updated. You've got these 3 cameras looking out forward, and the suite is pretty good. Adaptive cruise, some lane keep stuff, depending on how you spec the car. Of course, everything is controlled in here. You can adjust your follow distance, your lane keeping, and I believe depending on what trim you get, you'll get the eyeball watcher, which is nested right here at the top of your screen. And overall, the system works really well. Now, Subaru is not generally a company known for, advanced technology, but their eyesight safety suite is pretty good. Thumbs up from me. And we are going to talk about this a little bit more, but I want to keep an inventory for the pro and the con. And one of the pros is the driving experience. It's very easy, it's very comfortable, and we are going to talk about that a little bit more after this next point. And the last major category we're going to touch on is pricing. Now, the new Forester starts at $29,700. Now, you'll note that that's up $2,600 from last year, but there's a good reason for that. Half of that money kind of comes from inflation, but the other half is they've added a bunch of stuff and kind of killed off the base trim from last generation. So you're getting more standard stuff. It's going to cost you a little bit more money, but you are getting more stuff as standard. And if you're interested, this is still at that $29,700 starting mark, still less than where the CR-V starts. It's about $1,000 more than where the RAV4 starts, but the RAV4 isn't going to come standard with all-wheel drive. So about $41,000 maxed out is where you currently sit before hybrids and wilderness trims, and I think that's a pretty good value proposition seeing as what you're getting here. So let's grab the key and go for a bit of a drive after we cover a couple of these smaller quirks. You still get things like an aux port, which is interesting. I haven't used an aux port since probably high school. And with all the new technology features that you get here on the new Forester, you still can't use your phone as a key. But there are a bunch of Easter eggs in the glass. I hope you can see this. There's a little mountain range right here. There's this little hummingbird looking thing right here. And you even have the hummingbird on your pano roof. So I think the longer you own this car, the longer you look around, the more stuff you'll find. And as a 30-year-old, it's harder to keep friends, so it's nice to have your Subaru keep track of their birthdays so you can text them on their birthday, which is probably the first time you've texted them all year. And if you've got a partner, it'll also keep track of your anniversaries. Or maybe you want to keep track of other anniversaries, like the first time that you bought your Subaru. So it's nice to have that feature there as well. And not to be forgotten, you have even little hiking boot details in your front door card. Kind of cool. Good job, Subaru. Again, Harman Kardon, nice. But I think with that, we strap the camera on and go for a bit of a drive. Okay, we're gonna throw it in S# mode. Nice. All right, Forester 2025. It turned itself off, but now it's ready to go. Yes. Ooh, okay. Okay, so the truth is, launching this thing is not what it's about in any way, shape, or form. But I think that's fine, because the reality of the experience behind the wheel is that it's very comfortable. It's convenient, it's practical Subaru, it's gonna be very familiar with what you're experiencing. The ride itself, we went over those train tracks, I could barely feel it. It's nice and squishy without being wallowy and some of those lateral motions that I really don't like. It's a nice, compliant, easy ride. Am I still in S# mode? I am. So we'll do another little launch from this stoplight, which is a sign, not a light. Okay. Yes. The power. The fearsome 2.5 Boxer. 180 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. Again, not really about performance. We're gonna go into S or I drive, rather. And this is kind of what it's about. I'm sitting up nice and high. The seat is very comfortable. I have excellent visibility outside. The cabin refinement is pretty good. It tornadoed last night. We literally were locked down in the hotel. And there's still a bunch of residual wind going on. You can see it over here. And I'm pretty isolated. Like, one of the things that they focused on for this year in this new generation is interior cabin refinement and on-road refinement. And I have to say, I think they did a good job. Now, this is a pretty nice road, but it's great. I have nothing to complain about here. I've got enough power. Now, obviously, I think if we get up into altitude where some of these things are gonna be used, it might be nice to have a turbo to kind of normalize the pressure and keep enough air coming into the engine. But even, you know, the forthcoming hybrid, which again, we don't know any details on yet, but having a hybrid would add a little bit extra electric torque, make it feel a little bit more peppy off the line. But as it sits, it's incredibly comfortable. The steering is nice and easy. The driver assist suite is really good. Wireless CarPlay. I mean, it's hard to really complain about anything here. Now, this being the sport trim, it says sport on the back. Obviously, you have your opinions on that, but just driving it, sitting here, steering is nice and light. It's easy to drive. It's a nice, comfortable Subaru. Sound is okay. You do have these CVT paddles, which are silly, don't bother using them, but it's fine. Now, me personally, I love what they've done here with the interior. They've really made efforts to improve the quality, to improve the kind of feel of premiumness. I still really like that Outback that we had a week with. That was like borderline luxury car. Not quite on the same tier as Mazda, but the leathers were really good. And a lot of that stuff has trickled down here, but if you are looking for just that little extra more luxury, then I think the Outback is gonna do it. But I think definitely a great effort for this 2025 Forester. You've got a great car. A lot of the stuff that, you know, kind of needed to be addressed in the previous generation has been addressed here. Very, very solid car. Hopefully we can spend a little bit more time with it in the coming weeks and months, but as it sits, I'm a fan of the new 2025 Subaru Forester. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. And thanks to Subaru for letting us have a go, and thanks to Mama for bringing us out here for their 2024 Spring Rally. See you in the next one.